Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and this channel is all about running great one-shot adventures, but also short campaigns. Today, we're diving headfirst into the bedrock of madness itself, where we will find the Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle, a beginner funnel adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And trust me when I say that there is indeed madness here. There are things in this dungeon that still haunt my dreams. Now, those of you who have watched this channel before know that I'm a fan of Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's my go-to old school D20-ish fantasy RPG. It's not just the system I like, which I find nicely blends the best of D&D-ish mechanics, but also because of its adventures. They're all crafted with memorable settings, roller coaster pacing, and terrifying dangers that will make your players tremble. And DCC's zero-level funnels are fantastically fun, a break from regular role-playing where players control a handful of ordinary peasants or villagers as they find themselves in extraordinarily dangerous situations. DCC is a game that has no problem sending zero levels to other dimensions, confronting them with devils and ancient sorcerers, and casually putting them in no-win situations in the second room of the dungeon. And the Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle is no exception to this pattern. It throws a group of ordinary villagers deep into the earth, challenges them with an insanely powerful demon in the first few minutes, and then sends them through the underworld in an attempt to escape with their lives. It's like Disneyland, but if Disneyland were designed by Gary Gygax, Jim Henson, and Stephen King at a Halloween party with an open bar. Intrigued? Eager to learn whether this Forsaken Vault lives up to the standards of other DCC adventures? Does it contain all the weirdness, surprises, and dangers that your group craves? Or is this oracle something best to be avoided? Well, get ready, because not only am I going to give you a full review of the Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle, but I'll give you GM some tips and tricks on how to run this adventure like a pro. But before we dig in, I'll warn you, there are some serious spoilers ahead, so if you're thinking about venturing into this vault as a player, turn right around and go find a different oracle instead. All right, you funnel fans, let's go.
Crimson echoes, Destiny's faults, all fall beneath the Crimson Vault!
The Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle is written by Brendan LaSalle, a stalwart author of many other Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures. You can find this adventure hidden away in the Goodman Games Yearbook number 11, which I'll say up front is kind of annoying since this is more of a magazine than an actual supplement and it's unlikely new GMs would buy it. So hopefully Goodman Games will reprint this adventure somewhere more accessible soon. The adventure is designed for a dozen or so zero-level characters, ordinary villagers who typically only have a few hit points, a kitchen knife, and a chicken or two to take with them into this dungeon. The entire thing runs 11 pages and can easily be run in a single session. In fact, this adventure was the official Gen Con funnel a few years ago, and most of the sessions completed in under 2 hours. It's tight and it's punchy. The setup of the adventure is this. The Crimson Oracle is an ancient agent of fate. It lives in a secure vault deep beneath the village of West Maldine. Like all oracles, kings and powerful wizards and leaders often visit, trading gold for the oracle's wisdom. However, an evil sorcerer, Cozumel the Unmatched, came up with a better plan. He and his crew assaulted the oracle's vault. They stole its valuables, summoned a demon to cover their tracks, and then cast a powerful growth spell on himself to climb out of the vault and make his escape. It was a bold, if not overly dramatic plan.
Over-dramatic? Oh, Cozumel the Unmatched is never over-dramatic. I am just the right kind of dramatic. Yes, the giant kaiju spell might have seemed over the top, but you have to make an impression with the little villagers. Speaking of which, what am I going to do with this useless little man? Well, you better like and subscribe or you'll never find out.
So the first thing the poor villagers of West Maldine, the PCs, see is this massive wizard explode out of the ground. He grabs one of the poor PCs, the one with the lowest luck of course, and then runs away laughing. And worse, the entire village collapses into the remnants of the underground vault, where a massive praying mantis she-devil demon Flens Calora waits to kill everyone in sight. I really like the name Flens Calora. Terrorize the players with her and make sure your players never forget that name. So yes, within 30 seconds of starting this adventure, someone's been grabbed and presumably killed, the PC's village is totally destroyed, and everyone is trapped underground running for their lives from a crazed praying mantis demon. And this demon isn't for show. She's the real deal. She can deal 2d12 damage in one blow, which when PCs have 1 or 2 hit points each means they better run fast. Welcome to Dungeon Crawl Classics, kids. With the earth caving in around them, the PC's only avenue of escape is to go deeper into the Oracle's vault. And so the adventure quickly becomes a dungeon crawl. And this is a pretty linear dungeon. The vault is made up of about a dozen rooms, and it's a fairly straight line through each of them. This is both good and bad. Linear dungeons do have their advantages. They're easier to run, shorter to play, and guarantee the PCs will see most, if not all, of what there is to offer. On the flip side, unless a linear dungeon has fantastic and memorable rooms that give the players lots of choices on how to complete each one, the adventure can feel more like a theme park ride. But I'll say right away, to the author's credit, all of the rooms in this adventure are well designed, and they do give the players quite a bit of agency. So yes, it's a Disneyland ride, but one filled with creativity, insane pacing, and lots of death. This adventure has some of the craziest dungeon rooms I've seen. I'm talking fever dream crazy. Now I won't go through every room, but I'll point out a couple of my favorites. One of the earliest rooms has the sounds of whistles and drums and trumpets coming from it. And in it is a marble counter with hundreds of small buildings. Think an elaborate Warhammer miniature setup. And as the PCs examine this counter, they'll discover that it's the home of thousands of cruel tiny men barely an inch tall, who are all dressed like pirates. They're called the Prizetakers. And what's worse is that the Prizetakers have the custom of killing people, hollowing out their bodies, rigging them with pulleys and ropes, and riding them into battle. And so the PCs are quickly beset by these galley jacks, these horrific corpses, now piloted by hundreds of Prizetakers. And worse, as the galley jacks lurch and attack the PCs, they'll try to board the PCs, digging into their insides, killing them, and turning them into another galley jack. What the actual f***, Brendan? These things are horrifying, incredibly deadly, and I can't describe the reaction my players had when their best characters are slain, hollowed out, and rise again, with hundreds of cackling 1-inch men screaming the entire time. You know what this means? Monster of the Year award. Congratulations, Brendan. I think this is your second one. And then the best part of this room is that inevitably the players who witness a few of their friends overcome by the Prizetakers will undoubtedly want to get bloody revenge on the Prizetaker cities. Soon the PCs will be vengefully stomping buildings, flinging Prizetakers by the dozens against the wall, and screaming in delight. It's a scene that nobody will forget at your table, I promise. And another favorite dungeon denizen of mine here is a goat. It's a goat that used to be one of Cozumel's henchmen, but got turned into a goat by a polymorph trap. The goat is now trying to escape the vault with a sack of gold in its mouth so he can find a witch, pay her, and return to being a human.
A goat with a bag of gold in its mouth. Quickly, we must capture it.
Now, while this goat can be transformed back into a human with a dispel magic scroll the PCs can find along the way, it's more likely that the PCs will chase this goat around the dungeon trying to steal his bag of treasure. And this means that you as a good GM can use this goat to push the players into dangerous areas of the dungeon, like a giant scissor blade trap that awaits in a nearby room.
I got you now, Mr. Goat.
Eventually, the PCs will make their way through a few rooms and find the Crimson Oracle itself. And this isn't a mysterious man or woman speaking riddles in the back of a cave. No, the Oracle is a massive frost giant head whose frozen brain has been pumped with the blood of thousands of psychics. Again, it's another great example of Dungeon Crawl Classic subverting player expectations. The Oracle was injured and dying, the result of Cozumel's attack, but if the PCs help the Oracle by removing the weapon, I think it's an axe or something stuck in its skull, it will live long enough to help. It cries out, "Blood!" and if the PCs sacrifice some blood to it, the Oracle reforms into what can best be described as a blood elemental and asks the PCs their business. With good role-playing, the Oracle tells the PCs fortune, makes them swear to always treat Cozumel as a sworn enemy, and then demands a final willing blood sacrifice to help them escape the vault. So one PC must give up their life to help the others escape. No, that goat won't do the trick. It has to be a willing subject. Now, interestingly, the person who inevitably steps forward won't die right away. This is, again, more player subversion. I like having the Oracle even speak about this in a sort of riddle.
You did not die upon the altar, for the wound was wiser than the blade. It waits sealed beneath your skin to open again when the god remembers.
So the PC who's sacrificed himself will likely think, wow, I've escaped death. My sacrifice, it was just a metaphor and I'm good. But this is DCC, so that's just a fantasy. As the adventure says, the next time the PC rolls a 1, they'll fall over dead. I've pasted this little riddle in the description below if you want to use it to make the PC feel a little bit at home before they inevitably die. It's kind of mean, but it's also kind of fun. What did you think was going to happen? Thanks to the Oracle, the PCs now find themselves swept away into a cellar far away in the city of Punjar. This is one of the Dungeon Crawl Classic's biggest cities. This cellar was where Cozumel planned his heist. And there, waiting for them, remember that person that the giant Cozumel grabbed at the beginning of the adventure? Well, that player character has been transformed into a monstrous, antlered beast man who tries to murder his fellow friends. But if the heroes can defeat this beast man, well, they've escaped the Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle, and they get to level all the way up to level 1. But there's a good bit of treasure in this adventure the PCs can claim, so they'll likely also be able to afford some decent weapons and armor for their future adventuring career. But my favorite bit at the end here is that the characters who survive the vault gain a one-time clue from the universe, which means the next time they're stuck in an adventure, they can think about their time in the vault and perhaps remember a clue on how to deal with their dilemma. This is just such a nice little ability to give players who survive this adventure. They'll always think about it and try to use it. It's really cool. So what do I think about the Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle? Since it's a dungeon crawl, I'll weigh it against JC's 4 criteria for judging dungeon adventures. First, great dungeon adventures have to have a mix of encounters. No one wants to go room to room and fight the same bad guys again and again. There has to be variety. And here, the vault gets a great grade. There are traps, there are combats, which are really interesting ones. There are things to study, and there are opportunities for role-playing with both the goat and the oracle. Next, a great dungeon is set in an environment that itself tells a story. This is critical because usually in a dungeon there aren't a lot of NPCs around to help carry a narrative. And here's where the Forsaken Vault shines. Because not only does each room feel like it belongs in an oracle's vault, a very weird oracle, mind you, but the story of it being raided by Cozumel carries through the entire adventure. The players will understand what happened in the past and what this oracle was all about. There's lots of evidence of the attack that had just happened and chances to find out more of what happened. My only advice to GMs here is to constantly remind the players that they are in this vault of a great oracle. Spend time in each room describing the walls, filled with petroglyphs and strange symbols. Describe how maybe Cozumel ruined parts of it. He scratched out pictures or things that he didn't like, presumably to try to erase prophecies he disagreed with. Also, make the setting more relevant to the PCs. Perhaps they'll find a picture of a man that reminds them of somebody they once knew or a family member. Or they'll find another that looks like it's themselves kneeling before a great king. While the adventure does mention doing this in passing, I find that if you take the time to make the environment more pertinent to the players, it will go a long way for this, not to just feel like another dungeon. So just make yourself a little note in each room on what the PCs can discover to make it really feel even more like an Oracle's vault. Next, I look for flexibility for the GM. Because dungeons are so contained, I think that great dungeons give the GMs extra elements to allow a little more flexibility than just describe a room and hope the PCs navigate it. GMs can really use elements that help them control the pacing, push the players along, add more danger to sections, or entertain players with very specific needs. Sometimes, for example, you have a group that loves combat. That's where wandering monster tables help. Or another group might love role-playing, and having some NPCs that are trapped in a dungeon then gives them the opportunity to do that. And here, this adventure gets an okay grade. The GOAT is a great tool for moving players along and adding some role-playing elements, and the GM can insert a survivor here and there if needed. The adventure's short enough that it probably doesn't need much else, but I wish it had added a wandering monster or two that could be used to threaten groups in the event they aren't moving. I suppose you could use a group of those Prizetakers wanting revenge for the destruction of their towns. That would be pretty cool. But there's just not that much here for the GM to play with, but it's fine given how short the adventure is. Finally, great dungeons are memorable. They have a twist, a turn, something that features elements you haven't seen before. There are so many dungeons that are published that I really think this is critical, because nobody just wants to fight monsters through an unremarkable dungeon filled with corridors and halls anymore. That might have worked 30 years ago, but dungeons need something special now. This can be a monster encounter that's unique, or a room, or a puzzle, or lots of things. And, well, in this dungeon, the Prizetakers and the Galley Jacks. So amazing, so fun. These things will never be forgotten by your players, trust me. So yes, this adventure is yet another strong DCC funnel. In fact, I think it's one of my favorite funnels for beginners. It's short, it's crazy, and there's no way your players will mistake it as just another generic dungeon from a more standard fantasy game. Its only real weakness is that it is short and very linear, like I said at the top. I think linearity is fine for a short funnel adventure, but I can see experienced role players wishing there was more here to discover, like secret rooms or servants of the Oracle they could interact with, that sort of thing. If you've run or played Vault of the Crimson Oracle, tell me, who died first? Did the GOAT get away? How many Prizetakers did your group destroy? Drop your war stories below, and I will try to respond to each and every one. Until next time, I'm JC. And just remember, if your buddy gets hollowed out and turned into a murder puppet, maybe just burn the whole tiny village down. Trust me.
100 die for Cosmos dream. The Oracle's silence by a